Vincent Lefulni, Fight Vivia, Stefan Askel, dear friends and guests. It is a great pleasure today to invite you to this special edition on yoga. Now, yoga is well known to many of you here at UNESCO and those of you who are not from UNESCO. Yoga is the intangible cultural heritage of India. It is the perfect philosophy of life, the perfect union, if I may say so, of the mind, body and spirit for a better you and for a better life. But I think what makes today very, very special is that we have the man who lives to tell his tale. We have Stefan Askel sitting here with us, author, his books are with you. The film that you will see is based on his life, and I think what is very wonderful is that this film will tell you that yoga has life-transformative aspects and qualities. And who better to tell you that than Stefan Askel himself? I would also like to take this opportunity to thank him for his support right through this event, as well as to Flair Productions and Michel Lafont. Thank you very much, Stefan. I'm also very, very pleased to say that amidst us, we have a yoga guru extraordinaire in Fight Vivia. It is such a pleasure to have him in our midst. He is the director of the Aino Yoga Center Paris. I think he has spent virtually his entire life in the pursuit of yoga, and today imparts the teachings of the great yoga guru, Sri B.K.S. Iyengar, as nobody else does. I've had the pleasure of knowing him for the past 2-3 years, and I can say unequivocally that apart from being such a fine yoga guru, he's one of the finest gentlemen that I've met. Fight will of course be speaking to you very shortly, and together with Stefan, at the end of the screening of the film, please profit from their presence and pose questions. I'm sure they would have the answers to all your questions. Finally, I would like to state that yoga is global. Global as very few things are. It is, of course, as all of you know by now, the ancient cultural heritage of India, but now is entirely global and belongs to humanity. On the 11th of December 2014 at the United Nations in New York, 177 countries co-sponsored an India-led resolution, which really is a record. There never has been a resolution of this sort adopted in the General Assembly with so much support. So 177 countries had decreed in 2014 that 21 June will be the International Day of Yoga. I would also like to say that UNESCO has been extremely supportive of all our efforts here, and I'm very pleased to say here, Vincent is sitting with us, that the ultimate objective of yoga, which is peace and joy, is very much also the objective of UNESCO, which is building peace in the minds of men and women. So let me conclude with my very good wishes and greetings to you, and let me also wish you much joy and true inner peace in all of your lives. Thank you very much. Vincent Lefulni, the floor is yours.
Son Excellence ambassadeur Ruchila Kambodge, cher Faith Vivia, cher Stefan Askel, Namaskar. Nous sommes très heureux de vous accueillir ce soir à l'UNESCO pour la projection de ce film témoignage sur les nombreuses vertus du yoga. La semaine dernière, paraissait dans le New York Times un long article rappelant les bienfaits du yoga et de la respiration, étayés par les résultats d'études cliniques récentes sur la diminution de symptômes d'anxiété et de stress. Les études médicales sur l'apport bénéfique du yoga sont innombrables et le moyen simple d'en profiter, c'est de le pratiquer. Agissant sur le corps, l'esprit et le mental à la fois, le yoga est une science à la fois millénaire et vivante, transmise à travers les siècles et les frontières par des sages, des traités, des échanges. Depuis les textes des Upanishads de la Bhagavad Gita et des Yoga Sutras de Patanjali avant notre ère, jusqu'aux maîtres modernes comme Swami Vivekananda, Sri Aurobindo et Iyengar, la richesse du yoga s'est transmise comme une science complète, une philosophie, un chemin vers une conscience plus claire et plus apaisée. Le soutien apporté en décembre 2014 par 170 États de l'Assemblée générale des Nations Unies à la proposition du Premier ministre Narendra Modi de proclamer une journée internationale du yoga le 21 juin montre à quel point le yoga, comme l'art d'ouvrir la circulation de l'énergie vitale, le prana, est devenu un langage universel et le moyen de rapprocher les peuples et les cultures. Nous avons célébré ici, à l'UNESCO, cette première journée internationale du yoga en votre présence. 2 mois auparavant, lors de sa visite historique à l'UNESCO, le Premier ministre Modi s'exprimait ainsi. Le yoga éveille un sentiment d'unité, d'harmonie avec soi-même, la société et la nature. Il peut nous aider à faire face au changement climatique et à créer un monde plus équilibré. Alors que l'UNESCO participe en ce moment même à la COP22 à Marrakech, autour de la devise « Changeons les esprits, pas le climat », la pratique du yoga participe de cette prise de conscience qui commence en soi et par soi. Il n'y a rien de plus fort qu'un témoignage personnel pour découvrir et être inspiré par une pratique. Le film que nous verrons ce soir nous témoignera comment, dans des contextes les plus difficiles, le yoga peut aider l'individu à sortir d'une prison intérieure et trouver les ressorts de guérison en soi en prenant en charge de sa vie par un cheminement autant physique que mental. Je remercie la délégation de l'Inde pour cette initiative et le réalisateur Stéphane Askel d'être venu partager en personne son extraordinaire voyage fait de courage, de rencontres et d'ouverture, qui je suis confiant sera source d'espoir pour nombre d'entre nous. Je vous souhaite une excellente soirée et maintenant je voudrais passer la parole à M. Felberia, à qui aussi je voudrais que nous souhaitions tous ensemble un joyeux anniversaire.
Excellency Srimati Ruchira Kamboj, Ambassador of India to UNESCO, His Excellency Mr. Salam Deforma, friends of yoga. Selon Charaka Samhita, un des 2 traités majeurs de la médecine classique indienne, le yoga guérit ce qui est guérissable et aide à vivre joyeusement avec ce qui n'est pas guérissable. Yoga Svatmaram, auteur de Hatha Pradipika, un des 2 traités fondamentaux sur la pratique de yoga, n'oublie pas de mentionner que l'on soit jeune, âgé ou vieillard, malade ou faible, tout le monde peut pratiquer le yoga et en bénéficier sans limite. Mais Patanjali, le codificateur du système de yoga, étant médecin lui-même, a un point de vue encore plus spécifique. Dans ses aphorismes sur le yoga, les Yoga Sutras, il considère la pratique du yoga plus préventive que curative. Et Yam Dukkamana Agatam, les souffrances à venir sont évitables et doivent être évitées. D'ailleurs, mon maître Yogacharya Iyengar nous disait souvent que cet aphorisme vu sa profondeur et son ancienneté, devrait être choisi comme le slogan de l'Organisation mondiale de santé. La tradition de yoga divise les maladies en 3 catégories. Adi Atmika, les maladies qu'on s'inflige soi-même, ou les maladies, en d'autres termes, les maladies qu'on invite. Et ces maladies-là, selon la tradition de yoga, peuvent être réduites ou éliminées par le yoga. Ensuite, il y a des maladies qu'on appelle Adidailika, les maladies qui sont causées par des facteurs génétiques. Génétiquement, on est né avec certaines maladies, et ces maladies-là peuvent être soignées ou au moins contrôlées par la pratique de yoga. Et finalement, c'est les maladies qu'on appelle Adibautika. C'est des maladies dont l'origine est dans la nature, par exemple des maladies qui apparaissent après les tremblements de terre, des familles ou des morsures d'animaux, etc. Ces maladies peuvent avoir 4 manifestations différentes chez l'être humain. Ils sont soit prasupta, dans un état dormant, c'est là où le microbe est entré, mais il ne s'est pas encore montré, soit ils sont dans un état atténué, panu, soit vichina ou interrompu. Vous êtes malade, vous avez pris un cachet qui a interrompu légèrement la maladie sans la guérir. Soit udarana, la maladie est entièrement active. Traditionnellement, une pratique systématique de yoga se base sur 3 séquences successives. On dit qu'on ne doit pas aborder l'une de ces séquences sans avoir maîtrisé la première. Donc on voyait la première, c'est Chikrit-Chakrama, prévention, le processus de prévention et guérison. C'est le début de pratique de yoga, à travers laquelle on stabilise la santé. Ensuite, c'est Shakti-Krama, on augmente le niveau énergétique dans le corps dont la santé est stabilisée. Et finalement, Adhyatma-Krama, ou la quête de soi ou la recherche intérieure. Les séquences 2 et 3 sont encore divisées dans des sous-séquences, mais ce n'est pas le sujet de notre discussion. La parole de Mundaka Upanishad, la réalisation de soi n'est pas à la portée des faibles, est sûrement une des sources de cette vision. Selon l'énergétique de yoga, essayer d'énergiser un corps affaibli et malade, ou de déclencher les énergies latentes d'un tel corps sans l'avoir guéri au préalable, l'amène vers la destruction. Aussi, on sait qu'un être malade et affaibli, sans avoir stabilisé son état de santé, ne peut pas s'engager ni traverser les rudes épreuves de la réalisation de soi. Stéphane Askel, selon son propre témoignage, est venu au yoga dans un très mauvais état du corps qui commençait, à son propre dire, à affecter aussi ses organes internes et son état mental. La connaissance et le savoir-faire exceptionnel de son enseignante, Corinne Guélian, et les assistants qui l'entouraient, ainsi que son propre courage et assiduité, parce que c'est très important dans la pratique du yoga. J'étais témoin de son courage et son assiduité, ont participé à sa guérison et à son ascension mentale. Son film et son livre sont des témoignages vivants de ses efforts et jettent une grande lumière sur les brillants travaux sur la recherche thérapeutique de yoga, de Yogacharya P.K.S. Iyengar. En effet, P.K.S. Iyengar a su rénover et recodifier entièrement la pratique de yoga tout en restant profondément ancré dans la tradition classique et a révolutionné le yoga Chikitsa ou l'approche thérapeutique de yoga, considéré jusqu'alors comme un sous-produit mineur de la recherche spirituelle. Au sein de l'UNESCO, suivant les encouragements et l'exemple donné par le Premier ministre de l'Inde, son Excellence Shri Narendra Modi, et à l'initiative de la délégation de l'Inde à l'UNESCO sous l'impulsion de son leader, Mme Ruchira Kambodge, nous avons introduit depuis bientôt 2 ans des cours de yoga classique suivant la pure tradition de l'Inde. L'accueil chaleureux et la grande présence que les membres de différentes délégations de l'UNESCO réservent à ces cours nous fait penser que l'UNESCO, une fois de plus, est en train d'accomplir sa grande mission d'agir comme un lien solide dans la propagation du yoga en tant qu'héritage d'hier, la nécessité d'aujourd'hui et la culture de demain. Donc, ensemble, que l'univers tout entier ne soit et au chant.
After those excellent words, perhaps we should begin with the screening of the film. And immediately after the film, please stay back because we will have Stefan Askel who will respond to your questions, and of course Faik. And I must mention here also that there is a little reception just outside room 4, so please do join us for the reception. So with everybody's permission, I think perhaps we can start with the film right away. Thank you very much.
Understand the full meaning of this sentence. I was unaware that years later I would be swept up in a maelstrom that would lead me to the gates of hell, only to send me onwards towards the light.
Teacher now, you like it? First I wanted to thank you, Your Excellency, Madame Cambodge, Monsieur Dufourny, and my teacher, Faik Birya, to make this even possible. Believe me, a few years ago, I had no clue that one day I would be here presenting a film about yoga. I started to practice yoga out of desperation. I had no other solutions, and when I met my teacher, she made me think it was possible. And it was long, it was not easy, I had a lot of fears and resistance. But the film idea came one day when she asked me if one day I could walk again, I would have to give back what she was giving to me. And I decided if I can do my work again as a filmmaker, I would do a film about yoga. The thing is, I didn't want to, I've seen all the films that have been made about yoga, and I wanted to do a film that was more about how it transforms people from inside. And I didn't want philosophers, I didn't want any historians, and I wanted to go in places where it was totally unexpected. And the more I was advancing in my quest through the film, the more I met the most amazing people. I think the message also in this film for me was more about how yoga can bring back some self-esteem, self-confidence, even in jails where you've seen those guys, they are probably going to die, and they say they're finding freedom with yoga. And that for me was the most unbelievable lessons I had through the whole film. This woman who has AIDS, she's an amazing yoga teacher. She says one thing amazing. She said, I have learned through yoga to accept my illness. And for me, that was the keys I needed. And that's what yoga brought to me. I could go on and on because this film was really adventure. And from the beginning, you know, the idea also of the film came when I was at the Iyengar Center, where it was nothing but a spa. I was tortured many years, and I'm still walking today, so it works. And I met this friend, and we were in ropes, upside down, and she said, maybe I can help you. And she introduced me to someone that financed the film, which is François Pinault. And my friend Elisa Breu is there tonight, and the producers, and all the people that really made this possible. And then came the book with the publisher, Michel Lafon. And the book is more about, in French I would say, it's almost like yoga pour les nuls. It means that when I came to yoga, I couldn't give a shit about yoga. I want you to know that. And for me, it was like, I had no other option. But slowly, the trauma of my body and my mind just snapped out, slowly. And when I saw what it was possible to do, I said, I really have to do something. And it's funny, at the end of the class one day, Fag told me that it's only after a few years that you really know the real reason why you came to yoga. And it's true, I discovered the real reason. Maybe it's this film, maybe it's something else, I don't know, but still, it takes time. And I really want to say, because a lot of people have been writing to me since the film, that it's, some people call me and say, you know, I did yoga 2-3 times, it doesn't work. I say, it's not 2-3 times, it's maybe 2-3 years. It's an investment, like Corinne Beria says in the film, and that's important. It's not like you practice yoga and you're right in, you know, in Alice in Wonderland. It's tough, but it's, of course today I'm going to say it's worth it, but for many years I wasn't sure about all this. And today it's really, for me, I'm so grateful to be there today. So if you have any very, very interesting question, please ask.
Very much. I enjoyed very much. I had many problems with my body, but I was thinking, can I use that to have more energy, to be able to give more energy in this house in UNESCO. You talked about that, how you take people to yoga and then solve the problems. I wish you could take our institution, UNESCO, even though that's really useful. Therefore, I want to ask one thing. Ambassador Cambodge, when she was giving her introduction, she said that yoga is peace and joy. And then she said this is in line raison d'être of UNESCO, which is peace, but she didn't mention joy. My question is that, do you think that peace, if it does not bring joy, will not last? Therefore, do you think that peace and joy are here from the same essence? And how we can transform these two together? This is useful for you.
Well, you can hire me right now at UNESCO, but I think in a way, you talk about peace, and I think the most important thing I have seen in desperate situations, like in the slums in Kenya, it's that it does bring peace in a way, it brings the violence down. So that's the first thing, like in the schools. I think it's, I think we do a lot about yoga, it comes from India, we complicate the yoga thing. It just brings an inner peace, and when you are in a better place, you communicate better with other people. Now, joy will come from peace. Yes, there were moments of joy. As you've seen in the film, in jails, those women who have HIV, they have zero future in a way, but they have joy. And I was like blown away by that, because bringing the peace through the yoga, and they can sing and have fun, because those women are killers. I asked one of them, what have you done? And she said, well, I was fighting with my husband, and he died. So this is not a little tender place. That's why I went there. So I definitely think that yoga brings a better communication between me and people, and then we can have some joy from that peace.
according to our vision of yoga, there are two types of peace, conditional and unconditional. If, of course, you are in some circumstances that even if you are angry or you are not feeling well, the circumstances make you to toxic yourself and to keep yourself peaceful. That is conditional peace. But unconditional peace, that is the type of peace which comes within, it is exactly, as you mentioned, is of the same nature of what we call unalloyed joy, pure joy. And actually for us, when somebody begins to practice yoga, this is for the first sign that that person is successful in his practice of yoga. We say when you practice and you progress and you go back to that unalloyed joy of the childhood, that is the sign that you took already a very big step forward successfully in your practice of yoga.
I think, thank you very much. That's very, very important what you mentioned. The intermediate between this conceptual intermediate between joy and peace is important in terms of
kind of unconditional peace which is coming from within and unalloyed joy.
I'd like to know how frequently one should do yoga, how much time one should spend per day, per week, etc.
As much as possible. It is a road to go. How fast you will go, how many hours a day you will walk, faster will be the result. But one of the beauties of yoga is that even spending a few minutes regularly every day, you get definitely very good results. That's what you cannot find with other systems of the work on the body and mind. In yoga, more important than the amount of the work is your quality of the work and the regularity in your work. That is most important.
C'est bon là? Je vais poser la question en français. Merci beaucoup pour ce film plein d'espoir et magnifique. Je voulais juste savoir, en tant que pratiquant de base, en quoi le yoga, quand on n'a pas souffert, comme Stéphane a souffert ou d'autres, en quoi dans une pratique, comment dire, 2-3 fois par semaine, dans une vie de tous les jours un peu stressante, qu'est-ce que le yoga peut apporter quand on n'est pas au fond comme d'autres le sont dans ce film?
Je vais passer le micro à Faïk, mais je voulais juste te dire, je pense vraiment, c'est ce que disait Faïk au départ, quand il présentait tout à l'heure, c'est une prévention. C'est vraiment le mot-clé, et souvent, ce qui est triste, c'est d'arriver, c'est pour ça que j'ai fait un peu ce film, c'est pour arriver à dire aux gens, voilà, faites quelque chose qui vous fasse du bien avant qu'il soit trop tard, et toucher un fond physique ou psychologique, et d'en arriver à traverser ce que moi j'ai traversé ou d'autres, si tu veux, c'est ça qui est, pour moi, c'est important de le dire. Parce que quand on arrive à un fond, il n'y a pas beaucoup de gens qui retrouvent le courage, comme ceux qu'on a vu dans le film, d'aller pratiquer, comme disait Faïk, même 3 à 5 minutes tous les jours, ça fait une énorme différence.
Encore retour à la question de monsieur. Basé sur l'expérience, je peux vous dire qu'une séance de pratique par semaine vous fait du bien, mais ça ne va pas plus loin. 2 ou 3 jours, vous vous sentirez bien, et après tout doucement, cet état de bien-être va disparaître. Afin d'avoir un résultat plus ou moins continu, il faut au moins avoir 2 séances de pratique par jour. Ça, c'est un minimum. Par semaine, pardon. Excusez-moi. 2 séances par semaine qui puissent vous garantir un certain résultat et un certain progrès. Maintenant, je ne vais pas faire peur, mais bon, je me base toujours sur la tradition du yoga, puisque c'est une connaissance qui vient depuis des milliers d'années et qui a passé dans le creuset d'expérience des très grands yogis depuis des milliers d'années. Donc, c'est des informations sur lesquelles on peut s'appuyer et faire confiance. Globalement, on dit que afin que le yoga vraiment apporte, puisse apporter ce qu'il doit apporter,
il faut compter le nombre de mois de pratique par rapport à votre nombre de l'année de vie. Si vous avez 30 ans, comptez 30 mois de bonne pratique vraiment pour arriver à des résultats complets et stables. Si vous avez 50 ans, donc quand je dis ça, ne prenez pas ça négativement, prenez positivement, qu'il faut commencer demain matin, il ne faut pas attendre.
Heureusement que vous ne me l'avez pas dit quand j'ai commencé. Toutes les vies. C'est avant et après.
Thank you very much. I'll switch to English. It was a delight to see your film. I think beautifully made and expertly filmed. And for me, one of the takeaways wasn't really simply the idea that we had to be at rock bottom when we came to yoga. I think one of the strong messages that came through in your film was the blessing, really, that as children that come to yoga from an early age, that we have and the transformative capacity that can bring. We're in the presence this evening of Micheline Flack, who is with us this evening and is part of who founded the RI, the Association for Research in Yoga in Education, back a long time before it was fashionable or even permissible to talk in France about yoga in the classroom. But my question to you, Stéphane, if I may, is you showed us really heart-moving scenes from a small French town, a relatively disadvantaged town, where yoga was being introduced. Can you tell us more about yoga? It's my understanding that yoga in schools is more of a Parisian and Ile-de-France phenomenon. Can you talk about that and what you've come up against in seeing yoga being introduced in schools here? And if you were indeed coming across educators who had taken advantage of the 2012 law that allowed l'Éducation nationale to introduce yoga into the classroom. I'm interested in you to elaborate on that, and thank you once again.
Sure, thank you. I think, yoga and education for me is a key, and I really wanted the film to end on this French place. You know that in the state of California a few years ago, they tried to introduce yoga. It's a foundation. And the parents of the school said, no, this is a religion, we don't want it. And there was a big trial. And finally they won, so yoga was introduced. And I think that's very important to say that when they introduced it to kids, it is not a religion at all. It's really an art of living, you can call it many things. What I found out in this school is, I think what is important is that it's a teacher that has a mission. She's transmitting. Yoga for me is all about transmission. And she was already practicing yoga, and that's the thing they do in Germany. They take teachers, history teacher, geography teacher, and they teach them yoga so they can transmit it to the kids. And the problem is to have enough teachers that have that vocation of bringing yoga to kids. And what I've seen is just amazing. The kids are sponge. You see the kids, they do it with their heart. They like it, they don't like it. We as adults, we process it through our brain. Sometimes little pieces. So, where does this come from? India, this is scary, this is too difficult. The kids, they take it, or they just leave it. And even their marks in school are better in the school. So on every level, we have to bring this practice really into our schools. And to finish, there was someone from the Éducation nationale that came on the film and to check what kind of question I was asking, what I was doing. So I just said, okay, I'm going to interview her just to please her, which I was sure, of course, not to put her in the film. And I felt there was this stasi, it was like Article 44, said that we cannot call it yoga, but relaxation. And it was like, well, yes, but if the kids feel better, if there's less, they harm each other less, and things like that, shouldn't we think it should, move on? And there's a lot of resistance. There's a lot, and what the principal of the college says, that it's a lot of work, but it's all benefit. They should really go for it.
Hello, I have a question for Mr. Birria. Don't you think that, the biggest problem I see is that in Western society, our value is egoism and money. And what you really, I think that the real illness, this is the real illness, that yoga is just a way to connect people, but it's not yoga itself. The solution is only one way to find the solution. So the question is, do you think that there is an illness in the Western society lifestyle? I know several people who are moving to India and being very afraid of seeing a lot of Indian people losing their culture and moving to the Western society culture. Do you share this vision? Thanks.
No, I don't share. If there is illness, it is everywhere. There's not illness, there's not anywhere. So there's not any type of society we cannot tell it is better than other. Each society, each country has its own precious values to share with other societies and with other countries. Let me share a small anecdote with you. When the very first time my guru sent me to teach, it was in Soviet Union. And when I went back to India and I wanted to tell him that how they were practicing and how they were doing and how it happened, he stopped me briefly. He told me, I know what you went there to teach. I don't want to know what did you teach. Tell me what did you learn from them. And from then on it became a type of lesson for me that wherever in the world I have taught or I work, I watch to see what I can learn from these people that I am teaching, and often I got very precious and very beautiful lessons. So we cannot tell that there is one country better, one society better, one society is ill, one society is not ill. Yoga has a universal message which is for everyone. But to go back to the origin of your question, the fact is that we are sitting here and we are discussing and we are getting encouraged by the practice of yoga. We cannot decide that from tomorrow morning I am going to be a yogi. We cannot decide that from tomorrow noon I will be a very wise person, and from tomorrow afternoon at 4 o'clock I will be a healthy person. And the day after tomorrow I will be love. These are things that we cannot decide. These are the things that through the education of our body and mind, they come from inside as intrinsic factors. This is what makes a very big difference between yoga and religion. The contact about yoga and religion. Actually, this was one of the amazing intelligence of the Patanjali, the founder of the system of yoga, that he made the yoga system in a way that it doesn't become a religion. Not that I'm against religion, I am myself a very religious person. But he made the system of yoga in a way that it doesn't become religion, so that to whatever religion or irreligion that you belong, you can practice yoga. Now, in the practice of the ethics of the religion, we have that in all religions we have the commandments, this is to be done, this is not to be done. To some extent we do, and the moment there are some pressures and we may forget, we might not do, we may discuss that. But with the practice of yoga, though commandments, ethical commandments come at the beginning of the practice of yoga, the 10 commandments, that we call the yama and yama, the things which should be done, the things which should not be done. But yet, after some type of practice, they come from the depth of the practitioner himself. Then automatically you feel that you have that possibility naturally to respect all the ethical commands and commandments without thinking that should I do this, should I not, is it good, how I can escape, how I have to do. So it is something, a biochemical changeable which happens inside of the practitioner. Why I thought that you need more or less amount of the months of your life to practice and to get to that stage that things comes out inside naturally. I hope that I can answer your question.
I'm going to ask one question because we have Faik here, and of course we have Stefan Askel. I think it will be very nice, Faik, if you can tell people, the busy people in this room, a very simple and practical way. Everyone here is very busy. Everyone has a 9 to 6 schedule and even beyond. How do they weave in a little bit of yoga into their daily lives, irrespective of their profession, their gender, their age group? I think that would be very useful to us because we are talking about yoga. I think a lot of us face a practical problem. We are all running against time. and you know, you tend to neglect yourself. So I think I speak for some of us. How is it, and what is the secret? How do we at least do 15 minutes of yoga every day, despite our stress, our tension, and our anxiety, our deadlines? So some magic recipe by you, some mantra you can share with everyone?
If I have to tell only one word, that will be Stefan's book's title, Breathe.
This is very interesting. For me too, I think the master himself says that we must breathe better. And this is a fact actually, Faik, because I think yoga also teaches us how to breathe properly. We forget how to breathe properly. And I think that's a beautiful lesson for all of us. But for that also, I think we'll have to come to you.
No, there is a question of awareness. Do you know that the yogis of all the times, they measure precisely the length of the breath of human being in different circumstances? When you are sad, what length of the breath you may have. When you are angry, what length of the breath you have. When you are anxious, what length of the breath. They measure it with the length of the one knuckle of the tongue. Very precisely they measure it. So if we know, just it is a question of awareness. If we find that when we are happy, you know, the moment all of a sudden you are getting good news is something that makes you anxious, it leaves you to breathe. If you can take that breath and you see what is that breath, and then the moment the things are going wrong, you grip that breath, definitely you will change the biochemistry of the body and the mind, and you will go back to that natural and quiet state. I am 100% sure about it.
So this is a promise. We will have one breathing class from Faik Birria himself at UNESCO before we are done with this year. Thank you. I don't know if there are any other questions, Ambassador Jalali.
Sorry, just 5 seconds. In Persian language, Birria means without hypocrisy. It is the same in India?
Just to finish, I wanted to add something.
I have to do my best to be alive.
You know, when I met Mikhail Iyengar in his village, he said something very interesting with what you were saying. He said, when I brought yoga to the West in the 50s, you were not ready for the philosophy of yoga. He said, I said to men, practice yoga, you will honor your women longer. He said, to women, you'll get thinner. Only he said, now you are ready to receive that philosophy. It was very interesting.
So, I think like all good things, this lovely evening too must come to an end, but not before I extend my very heartfelt thanks to Stefan Askel and his team, to Faik Birria, who is such a friend, to Vincent Dufourny and UNESCO for supporting us right through this yoga journey, which I think began 2 years ago with Prime Minister Modi. And the last thank you must go, of course, to the audience, all of you. Thank you for being here. And finally, to my team at the PDI UNESCO, 2 young ladies have worked very, very hard, Pooja and Shreya and Miriam, actually 3 of them, and of course to my very able editor, Rakesh Adlakha. Thank you so much for supporting me all. Thank you very much.